Good afternoon. My name is Paul Gross, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about an effort that started out of the community, but I believe is going to have a great impact on our community, called the Cerebral Palsy Research Network, and talk to you a little bit about how you can participate. Just a quick background. I'm father of an 11-year-old boy who's got hydrocephalus and cerebral palsy. Because of his hydrocephalus, which gets diagnosed earlier, I ended up getting very involved just as a parent with a lot of anxiety and some time to spend on the problems. We got very involved in trying to change the shape of medical research and created what is now a 14-center clinical research network for hydrocephalus, and recently got more involved in what that would mean in cerebral palsy, and this effort is born out of that. And it wouldn't be fair to my wife if I didn't give her credit because she told me to do it. So our mission is to improve outcomes. Now, originally when we were talking about this, we said treatments and outcomes, but if you improve the treatments, it's really the outcome that you care about. So improve outcomes for that people with cerebral palsy, so value. So the concept of the people being in the mission is core. We're very focused on patient centricity, and I'll talk about that more, through high quality clinical research and quality initiatives. And it's really been proven that clinical research that's not done in a multi-center fashion is very often has flaws unless you have a very large, very diverse institution, but still doesn't generalize as well. So that's critical to high quality. And quality initiatives are really about how you can reduce variation in practice, just the steps you do things, and outcomes improve. So that's our mission. What is it? Well, it's actually just a group of institutions, of clinicians and therapists that have an interest in research, and a group of statisticians and parents and people with CP that have agreed to collaborate to advance research. So it's really a bunch of people contributing their time to advance this effort and to have more answers, to have more improved treatments. It's also a data coordinating center, so a place where all the data from different sites can come together and get put into a single database that happens to be at the University of Utah. And at the core, there is a clinical registry. So let me make sure that's clear. So the registry is just a database of people with CP and some amount of details about them. It's clinical because the data that is in the registry comes from the clinicians. It's actually entered by the clinicians, and so that gives it a certain validity for the purpose of research. So that's the CPRN clinical registry. But there's also a patient-reported outcomes registry, which is a registry in which you enter data about you or about your child or about a person you're a caregiver for, which is very important for looking at long-term outcomes and what happens with all of these treatments that people receive for cerebral palsy. So. And that registry is focused both on kids and on adults, and I actually have the two leaders of the adult pro registry, patient-reported outcomes registry, here, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about the work and how we're engaging people in that. So where is it? It's across the US and Canada right now. It's 18 centers. I have another slide that just actually has the centers named in case you're curious where that pin is. For those of you that are local, which is many of you, that Florida pin is in Jacksonville. So it's a new thing. It started up out of an NIH workshop that happened in late 2014. We started getting a group together to talk in January 2015, and then we decided to do this thing in about April of 2015. And so what have we done? Well, we've defined a registry, so registry has a database and you have to decide what things you're going to collect and go in there, and so that was completed in the fall of 2016. It's got front-end development that is complete. That means doctors have to interact with a form that's in their electronic medical system or electronic health record. So the forms are partially complete, but they're complete enough that the system is actually up and running at our first institution, which is Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. And Epic, which is one of the leading providers of these electronic medical record systems that have been adopted by all of the institutions in the last 10 years, they've actually adopted our registry for data collection. So now any site that's got Epic and the most recent version of that, they have the building blocks of participating in this, which is great for the eventual very, very broad adoption of this registry and to really increase the power of the research that can be done. The Patient-Reported Outcomes Registry is implemented in a common research system called REDCap. You should just think of it, if you've ever done a SurveyMonkey survey, it's something that allows you to do that type of thing. And the first thing we're going to do is an adult registry, so we're going to ask questions of adults, and so it's going to be really important for us to get the community very involved, because that's how we're going to get a large number of participants and get meaningful data. And then we'll focus on pediatrics or kids 18 and under and their caregivers after that. As I said, patient centricity is critical to what we're doing, so we formulated a community advisory committee. Michelle Schusterman actually heads up our patient engagement effort as a volunteer, as most of us are in this process. And we've actually started out by getting a set of adults engaged to look at where we think we're going with our adult research. And adult research was targeted out of this NIH meeting as an area that was just really underfunded and did not have enough focus. It's just very often the question is, why is there no research about the implication of this condition on us as adults? A couple other things. So the data center is up and running at the University of Utah, in addition to just being selected. So they've got a long period of runway for us to go off and find public funding for research. And we've submitted a number of applications. I see my co-principal investigator sitting in the back of the room. I think is that Rich Stevenson? I don't have my glasses on, but Rich and I, who were caught in the same t-shirts yesterday at the party last night, purely by coincidence. But we've submitted a large-scale trial, so it's 23 sites and intended to collect information on 1,500 kids with spastic diplegia as the first target for the study. We'll hear about that study as to whether or not it gets funded by the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute at the probably end of January. So that study would spin up. And then we're doing further recruitment for our community advisory committee. So we're going to start looking for people that are caregivers for peds to join us, and Michelle will be reaching out to a broad array of people for that. And the idea of the registries, both the clinical registry and the pro registry, is to support the pro registry allows studies in and of itself, but the clinical registry is to give us information about the population, about practice variation between different institutes for us to target future research. So just quickly, is your hospital in it? I know a lot of people are local, so University of Florida, Jacksonville, but that's the list of hospitals that are participating in either the network or the large study that we described. And if your hospital's not listed there, what can you do? If it's an academic hospital affiliated with the university, ask your treating physician if they know about CPRN. Have they joined? So just plant the seed. So I'm now worrying that I don't have my slides that I got from Mary and Debbie, because I thought it was supposed to come before this, but maybe it comes after, so hold on one second. And if you're interested in joining, well, as it turns out, if you are at a CPRN center, your data from your visits will be included anonymously. So one of the things that's great about this is, since it's just observing standard practice, there's no change of intervention, it doesn't need to be through informed consent, and your data goes in without sort of names and identifying information, and therefore there's no selection bias. It's not based on, well, do we have someone who speaks a non-English language to consent the patient today? Everybody goes in, and it makes the data more valid. But if you want to participate in the PRO registry, the patient-reported outcomes registry, it will be up and running. We'll probably start with adults in the end of the year, beginning of next year. And if you send mail to proregistry@cprn.net, we'll make sure you get mail as soon as that's ready to go out to people. So I'm hoping with that, I'm going to skip ahead from explaining the details of how you get in. I'm going to invite Mary Ganotti and Debbie Thorpe up. So these are two researchers and clinicians or providers that in the physical therapy world, both with PhDs, that have volunteered their time for the study of adults. And I'll turn it over to you guys to give a little information.
Great. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Mary Ganotti, and I'm a physical therapist, and I've always been really interested to make sure that what I'm doing with children is going to make a difference in adulthood. And I work at the Shriners Hospital for Children primarily, and I have done long-term outcome studies. And my whole goal is to be able to help families make decisions and clinicians so that, you know, what we're doing in childhood is going to really promote a healthy, happy adulthood. And then what are some things that we can do for adults, because we have a lot to offer. And I'm just going to have Deb say a little bit too.
And I'm Debbie Thorpe. I'm from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and traditionally, as Mary, is a pediatric physical therapist, but moved into aging about 12 to 15 years ago and did some of the first intervention studies for adults with cerebral palsy. And so I'm very interested, as Mary said, in having them be able to maintain quality of life, be happy, be not in pain, and be as functional as they possibly can. And so I think we have a real good thing going here with this patient-reported outcomes.
Yeah. So we worked with the consumer panel, thanks to Michelle and all the volunteers, to identify the top 3 research priorities. And what we need to do is ask specific questions so we can give clinicians and families answers and start and stimulate some really good research. And the top 3 priorities that came out were pain prevalence, location, and treatments. What are the functional changes with aging? And what is the landscape looking like for mental health and well-being? And we would like to collect a large number of people, because most studies have been, you know, even 100 people is not enough information to get really good results. So we identified these research priorities, and we're working with the adult group to really refine the questions and make sure that they make sense to people, that they're really relevant. And our goal is, when people answer these surveys, we're going to do 3 of them at a time, probably, you know, within a short time period, over the course of maybe 9 months. And then when people answer the surveys, that we could rapidly put up on the CPRN website our findings, and that we could maybe make a little fact sheet that that people can hand to their clinician, or be informed by it. Because one of the biggest problems that adults with cerebral palsy tell us is a lack of education of providers about their condition, that most people can't get over the fact that, oh, you know, you have CP, and not really understanding their specific health and well-being needs. So that's the goal of that. Let's see, is that all the slides? So what's in it for you is we need people to participate. And we don't just want to have people that go to these CP centers. We would like people in the larger community. It's really going to help it's going to accelerate our research. The intervention studies that Deb and I are doing and others, it's going to really push the field forward. It's going to promote evidence-based, patient-centered treatment, and it's going to enable the marrying the technology that Paul's going to be able to do to marry some of these patient-reported outcomes with the clinical data, and then have the registry collect this detailed information over time across the lifespan, is going to enable us to really develop evidence-based treatments, which are lacking, and refine clinical care pathways that we're establishing. So I don't know if there's Any questions for Deborah? We're a wealth of information about the research around adults and rehabilitation, and we've worked really hard to generate fact sheets and information for families.
I just want to say one more thing too, is I know that as caregivers and adults with cerebral palsy, you get asked a lot to do these very long, cumbersome surveys. These are going to be short, 10 questions on specific areas. I think what our hope is as well is not just to get the feedback back to the consumers quickly and the caregivers, but also to use this information to educate adult service providers who would maybe perhaps welcome seeing adults with cerebral palsy in their practice, but don't know a whole lot about cerebral palsy. So, thank you.